Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video. This year I wanted to maximize the growth on my monstera plant, but I ended up doing the exact opposite. It is definitely not looking the healthiest. I'll explain what happened, so let's check it out. There's a little bit of a breeze today, so hopefully my wind chimes aren't distracting. But this is actually 3 plants. You can see 2, but one smaller one had rotted. But the goal for this setup was to showcase multiple plants on one moss pole. This is one of those plastic poles, but I did use an aroid mix, so there's no moss in there. I don't know what to call it, an aroid pole, I guess. But the goal for this plant was to showcase a big, beautiful, luscious plant with multiple cuttings on one support system. But obviously, that didn't turn out the way I wanted. So as you can see, I am outside today. So what caused it to look like this? Well, it's the sun. This plant was growing in my basement under grow lights. So when you bring an indoor plant outside, there is a series of steps that you have to do so that the plant can adapt to its new growing conditions. So going from a safe environment to the harsh elements outdoors can really stress out a plant. And the first concern is sunlight. When a plant grows indoors, even if it's in a south-facing window in direct light, that light is filtered pretty much by, trees and windows and that sort of thing. So it's way less intense than if you just placed it outside. Now, I did do a little bit of a test a couple weeks ago when I brought some of my cacti and succulents outside. These ones right over here. So here's my south-facing window. So from this window, I was getting around 4,000 foot candles, and in the direct sun, which comes from the east, so eastern morning sunlight, I think it was reading around 11 or 12,000 foot candles. So just a matter of a few feet, the light difference was about 3 times higher outside compared to my unobstructed south-facing window. So even with full sun-loving plants like my jades, you need to acclimate them to the outdoor conditions in a series of steps, like I mentioned. And the first one being placing them in full shade. So find a shady spot or a shady corner for about the first 7 to 10 days, and then slowly acclimate it to higher light. So what I would do after about a week is I would just bring it out slightly like that, and then it would get just a little bit of bright morning direct light from the east. So east facing light is way less intense than directly south or even west. So that's why I picked this corner right here, is right there. Don't mind this little disgusting bag. But this is where I typically place my plants so that they can acclimate to the outside conditions. Now you might be asking yourself, why didn't I acclimate this plant? Well, I did, and I'll show you what happened. So when I brought this plant down and I placed it in this corner right here, I thought the entire area, don't mind these weeds as well, I didn't use these planter boxes this year, but I thought this entire corner was shaded from the sun. But before this honeysuckle plant grew in, it was actually getting direct sunlight because the plant was much taller. I wasn't able to stick it under the planter box. And just in a matter of a day or two, without me noticing, the damage was already done. So even though the leaves were damaged by the sun, it definitely could have been way worse. Now, if it was in a full south-facing sun or even a west, you'd probably see a lot of black splotches throughout the plant. I've seen plenty of posts on Reddit saying someone has taken their plant outside just for a few minutes of direct light and their intentions were to bring it back in. But even just a few minutes of direct sunlight can cause some damage to the leaves, and that is unfortunately irreversible. And that's exactly what happened to my Euphorbia white ghost here. So you can see there's a lot of these black splotches or black areas, which was caused by direct sunlight. I thought this would be able to tolerate a little bit more sun, but it was definitely sensitive to it. But as you can see, some new growth is coming in nicely sun-stressed. I'll explain it a little bit more in detail here in a minute, but there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can chop off the leaves because, like I said, they will never revert back to a green leaf, so you can chop them off. But you can also leave them on if you want, as long as they're still green on the leaves. Now you can also chop it and root it in water, so you can kind of restart the plant. You can take a top cutting, put it in a container of water, let it root, or you can air layer it. You can place a bag of either moss or aroid mix at the back of the plant here, and you can grow roots in that bag, and then once there's a sufficient root system, you can chop it and restart the plant over. For this plant, I'm going to show you all three processes, but I'm going to ultimately in the end do a little bit of a hybrid model between the methods that I talked about. So the first one is cutting off the damaged leaves. So I'm going to cut this one off just because it looks very sickly. So all you do is follow the petiole down to the stem and just give it a clean cut like that. This eventually will dry up and fall off. So with the very top leaf, if you're going to cut this one off, what you don't want to do is cut this area right here. So this little nubby thing, this is where a new leaf and stem is going to pop out of. One of my Thai constellations is getting a new leaf downstairs, so I'll insert a video clip of where the leaf is popping out from the petiole. So you just want to avoid that area, but you can definitely cut off the top leaf if you don't want to look at this thing anymore. I'm actually just going to cut off the remaining leaves. So I'm just going to chop them off like that. So there's a few more leaves lower. So I'm just going to cut it like that. This one right here as well. Cut that one off. And you're left with a bare looking stem like this. Now the next method is water propagation. So all you have to do is cut in between two nodes. Here is one node, here's another node. I'm actually going to go just below this little leaf thing right here. So I'm going to cut it right above that. So now I have a separate cutting like this, and I'm just going to peel this leaf off like that. And then you just find a container of water and literally stick it in there. So I'm going to leave this leaf just because it's not like too damaged, but it does have some green in it, so it's going to photosynthesize and help produce some new roots. Now the next method is called air layering. You can use a plastic cup or a pot or even a Ziploc bag. What you want to do is just cut it so that you can place it around the stem, and you want at least one, if not more, nodes in the container. Then you can fill it with the substrate, so either moss or soil, aeroid mix, whatever you want. You just want to make sure that you have all of that substrate at the back of the pot so that the aerial roots can transition or produce soil roots. And then once it has a large enough root system, I can actually bring this down a bit like that. Maybe something like that. So once you start to see some roots developing in the container, then all you do is same thing, is just chop it up, take that new top cutting and place it in its own pot, and it should just continue to grow. What I could also do is add more substrate into the top of this moss pole and maybe center this a bit more, and then eventually this aerial root will grow into the aeroid mix. But like I said, I'm going to do a bit of a hybrid model, and I just want to show you what I mean by that. So you can see lots of roots have grown into the aeroid mix. So what I'm going to do, just because I don't want this really long stretched out stem, now I can definitely leave it like this and it's not going to hurt or harm the plant, but I just don't want this big kind of stretched out stem. So what I'm going to do is find at least one node, like right here you can see this aerial root is growing into the aeroid mix, and same with the one below that. So I know at least two roots or two nodes have grown roots into the soil. So what I'm probably going to do is cut somewhere along right here. I'll take this portion off of the moss pole and then I'll place it back in the pot with these cuttings right here. And I'm going to leave these two because when I take the top cutting, so when I remove the top and I make an incision or a cut right here, it's going to activate the growth points or growing eyes. And you can see one right here. That little nub is a growth point. So when I cut this right here, it's going to start new growth from this node. And there's one on this side as well. It should be right behind this leaf. There should be another growing eye right there. So I can leave these in the pot. And this is another example of one right here. So a new growth point, so a new stem will emerge from there. And then I can just keep these two cuttings in this pot. I can take this top cutting, which has roots, I'll put it back in the pot, and over the course of a few weeks, it's going to push out new growth from here, and hopefully it's going to work on a root system large enough to sustain new growth from that petiole, that growth point right there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find that node and then this node. Now the node for this one is right here. I don't want to cut through that node, so I'm going to cut closer to the I guess the top of this node, and I'm just going to make a cut like this. Small cheap knife, but now these two are completely separated, and I just realized I probably should have cut down here a little bit because this aerial root is not growing into the mix. It's actually this one down here, so I should have cut right here. So my mistake, but this one should still have hopefully large enough roots that it can sustain new growth. I'm just going to see if I can maybe wiggle out this root, or see if I can maybe just dislodge it a little bit. I will take the plant out just to look at the overall root system. I'm just going to shake out some of that mix. Yeah, it's not coming out. It's grown pretty deep into the soil here, which is good. That makes me happy, but it's going to be a little bit tricky to get it out. So I might actually just unclip these tabs on the back. I think it's easiest if I just take this out of the pot for right now. If I can get it out. It's going to be root bound. Okay, so we got some really nice roots. I'm actually going to find a larger pot, and I'm just taking these little clips off. So I got the back portion completely unraveled or opened up. So I'm just going to follow this root. Oh yeah, we got plenty of root. Even these secondary ones, I'm just going to be very careful to not break them. And I'm just going to pull this through. I'm actually going to slice this little piece right there, just so it gives me more access to extract the roots. Something like that. And now I can pull these roots through like that, and they will now be separate. Just gonna clip this back up as best as I can. I did break the bottom tab, but I can continue to use this pole like that. This is the thickly grow pole, and this one is the large one. So that's why I use this for my monstera plant, but look at these roots. So I'm gonna have to find a larger pot, and these cuttings I'm gonna leave right here. Now what I'm doing is making a spot to place that other cutting back in the pot. So I'm just gonna break up these roots here, untangle them a little bit, make a spot so I can place it on the moss pole again. So here's the cutting. It's got the roots right here, so that should be sufficient. I just have to protect these ones. I'm actually gonna cut back these larger aerial roots like that. So I'm just gonna cut them off, and then I can place this cutting kind of right back in the pot like that. Now for pot selection, here's the original pot. Here's the next size up. So that is significantly larger. I'm gonna go get some more soil, some aeroid mix, and I will reuse this as well. I dumped all the old soil back in the pot here. I'm just gonna take out some of these roots because I don't want them to rot. And then I'm just going to place the plant back in the pot, kind of roughly at the same height. I'm gonna keep this plant right up against the moss pole, and I tucked this aerial root into one of those grooves, so this should start to grow into the to the aeroid pole, I guess, and I'll keep it something like that. Now all I have to do is just add in some soil. So here's some leftover stuff from a few other projects. I'm just gonna make sure that this is in the center like that. Now all I have to do is just dump in the old soil, or this extra stuff I have, like that. And for the rest, I'm using the VeryPlants aeroid mix. This is just a nice chunky mixture. Whoops, I'm dropping it. It's suitable for drainage as well as good for airflow to the roots. I'm just gonna place a bunch in the pot. I can add some into the support pole there as well. Make sure it's stable and upright. I'm going to add a little bit at the back, just kind of push that down. You can shake the pot. You can also use a pencil or something, but I seem to have lost another pencil, but I'm just going to kind of shake it all down, something like that. Just make sure it's filled in kind of all around the sides. I can put some into the pole here. That way all those roots can continue to grow into the pole. Maybe something like that. And I do have a support tie. This one right here, I'm just going to place this, cinch it up nice and close against the soil. So something like that. And since it's been outside for a couple weeks already, I'm just going to leave it kind of in this spot. It'll get some morning sunshine, but I'm just going to kind of water this in quickly, and we'll check back in a couple weeks and see if we get new growth. And I also brought the water prop one here as well. So it's been a couple weeks since I chopped this plant up. You can see right here, this is where I made the chop, and then I stuck this one in a container of water. You can see right here, there is a new growth point. There's actually another one right down there. So 2 nodes have been activated on this cutting. This one right here, I chopped it, put the top cutting back in the soil, and you can see there's a growth point right there, one up top there, and there's actually 2. So 1 right there, and then 1 right down in the soil. I don't think there is another one. Maybe this one right down there. It looks like it's starting to get a little swollen, but this one has 4 growth points, and I'm actually really interested to see if all 4 of these activated nodes end up pushing out stems and leaves, because in my experience with most aroids, it's usually the top 1 or 2 nodes that'll continue with growth, and the other ones will just kind of die back. So I'm interested to see if these actually produce leaves, which would be pretty cool. And then the top cutting, there is no leaf from the petiole right here. So that's kind of the update with this one right here. And then the cutting that I placed in water, it already has some roots, some nice big chunky roots. I don't see any leaf petiole growth starting, so a new leaf will come out from right there. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching all my videos. Take care.